So section 3 is designing details, and that's kind of 10 to 17-ish. The diligent training of work ethic. I talked to a professor at George Fox. He teaches Greek studies. And he said, I love homeschooled students that come to college. They are so smart and they're eager to learn. They're so bright. He goes, but I can tell you, they don't know how to turn anything in on time. So what he said, he goes, if anything, can you please help me out? Can you please require your children to hand things in on time? Because they get to college and they're used to mom going, okay, fine, just give it to me in the morning or give it to me next week or whatever. And so deadlines aren't real dialed in for them. So the work ethic is something that you can teach. It's kind of easier if you help them to find either work or activities outside of you, because you're going to have to constantly balance the I'm your mom and I want a good relationship with you. I'm your teacher. This is what I required. And for me, it is not worth the sacrifice of a relationship with my child to butt heads over an assignment. It's like for me, it's like at the end of the day, I want a good relationship with my child, and no assignment for me is worth that kind of headbutting. So if they're reluctant, maybe consider, okay, how can I teach them this concept in a way where they're not being accountable to me for it, since this seems to be a particular challenge right now. Maybe it's being accountable just to dad. Maybe it's just going one step up the chain of command, and that it's easier for them. Because I know when we had really hard days with my son, before we found out that he was dyslexic, which now makes sense why his days were so hard. If he was having a hard time, I would just call my husband and like, can you talk to him? And so he would talk to him. He's like, here, buddy, I need you to listen, Mom. I need you to, you know. And then he was dialed in and he did what I needed him to do. So, but being really diligent to teach him that work ethic is important. Always keeping the big picture in mind, that you're not going to teach them these concepts the first time they're introduced, that it is a process of time, but that it is really important that they know how to work hard, and how to feel that satisfaction after working hard, and that other people will appreciate their timeliness. Delve deeper. So this is the age. 10 to 17 is a fabulous time. It is. It's one of my favorite sections of time with my children. And that's delve deeper in the areas of interest. And this part's really super important, even if it's not a potential career choice, right? We let my daughter pursue filmmaking and screenwriting, and now come to find out ultimately it's not her career choice primarily, but she learned so much, because there just comes a point when you're really delving into something where it gets harder and harder to have proficiency in that, whether it's dance, Boy Scouts for my son, Civil Air Patrol. I mean, the higher up he goes in that program, the more is required to promote, and there's more testing, and he's got to write stuff, and he's got to take these tests, he's got to learn these skills, and it's like, well, he may not end up in the Air Force, but that's okay, because he is getting valuable life skills, because any level of proficiency that you get to, because to be proficient in anything, whether it's knitting, sewing, baking, cooking, auto mechanics, it doesn't matter. The more into it, the harder and challenging it gets, and you've got to troubleshoot. And so if it's an area of interest, even though they're not going to make a career out of it, allow them time to be able to dig into that, because it will give them the ability to persevere when other things get hard, because they will have proven to themselves, even when this gets tough, I can push through. And if it's something that they love to do and want to do, it's easier for them to push through, because they desire the knowledge so much and they desire the skills so much. Discover. It's really watching them, discovering their gifts, talents, but also you want them to practice diminishing and or replacing the things that they are lacking with appropriate positive character traits. Whatever holes in areas of learning and weakness, do what you can to build those things up, but to remember that not with your children. If they want to do something, like my son has all these grand ideas. He's got big ideas. He's like an inventor brain. And so I try not to say no when he wants to do something that's kind of remodeling the house. I go, that is something that's exciting to think about, and there may be a time when you are able to do that, but now's not this time. Because one, maybe it requires money that we don't have for a project that big. Maybe he doesn't quite have the skill set to do what he wants to do, even though he thinks that he does. And it's like, if this is a project that you're still interested in doing later, maybe we can work towards that. Maybe we can start saving for that, or maybe we can start getting you hooked up with a teacher to give you the skills so that you can do that. And so I really try not to say no, but just go, maybe not right now. And then sometimes the idea passes away and it's gone and you don't have to deal with it. But if it's something that they're persistent about, and you make it happen, right? And then you're able to do that. So I'll go back, because my oldest daughter and I have an agreement. Anything in my life that she needs to use to minister to another person, I'm a free open book. And she's like, anything you need from my life at any time, you can share. So I have open sharing with my daughter. Not my son, he's very private. But when she first wanted to write this story, she wanted to make a story, she was helping neighbors around the corner, and they wanted to make a pirate movie. She was like, I don't want to make a pirate movie. I'm like, if you make any kind of a film, it will give you skills. It'll give tools in the toolbox. And so she's like, okay. And so she just thought, pirates? Like, what's the deal with pirates? I thought, I'm going to inspire you. So I showed her Pirates of the Caribbean, edited without all the creepy parts. And so she was inspired, and so she talked to them, and she came back, and she's like, she was serious. She was 11 at the time. She was dead serious. She came in, she goes, so what's my budget? Excuse me? She's like, well, because we're going to need, like, to go on location, and we're going to need to get, like, a ship built, and we're going to need, like, a cast and a crew and equipment. I'm just like, no. She's like, how do you expect me to make a pilot? You told me to help. And I'm like, okay, for this thing, I'm like, we need to start small and work our way up. And I'm like, you need to somehow write a screenplay. I'm like, you're not going to make another Pirates of the Suburb, or Pirates. That's what the name of our movie was, Pirates of the Caribbean. I said, because one, it's already been done, so why are you going to do a duplicate? But two, you don't have the skill set to be entrusted with, you know, a $2 million budget. And so she was really disappointed about that, was really unhappy. And I said, you need to look at the resources that you have, that we have, and write a screenplay based on that and what you can pull out. And she's just like, what? And so I was thinking, I just go, how about this idea? And I just kind of threw the idea out. And she took it and ran with it. And I read it, and I'm like, we need to make this movie. She's like, yeah, I know, we need to make this movie. And I did not realize that she had learned enough from watching bonus features on films that she actually had more tools in her toolbox than I knew. But we were able to use the tools that she had to actually produce this film. And so she has a 33-minute short that premiered. We showed it in Tualatin. We had, I think, 4 standing room only shows. The library people came because they helped us so much with resources. They asked us to give them copies. It's at the Tualatin Library, and they put it in the World Catalog. So there you go. But it's just like, it's, you know, she rolls her eyes and cringes now because she's just like, Mom, stop talking about Pirates and the Suburbs. You know, because it was her first thing and she was 12. But it gave her the skill set that she needed so that she could continue to expand. And now that I know she can do it, it's like, when she goes to make her next film, because I know what she's capable of, I'm totally willing to fundraise and actually find her backers to make it, because I know she'll put out quality work. But it's like, you got to start small and build up, right? And then, let's see, where are we at? Oh, discourage. Discourage detrimental friendships, if possible. Sometimes they're relatives, and that makes it tricky. Obviously, that's something to think through. But I know that we've had to make hard choices and be kind of the bad guys in saying, you know, I don't really want you spending time with that person because that's not the best for you. Not that I'm judging that person, but you two together, ooh, not good. And so it's hard, and it's one of those sucky things of parenthood where you're just like, I really hate to be the bad guy on this. But if, like I said, if you've established that you're the parent and that they trust you and they know that you've got their back, and you guys have the communication, do you see how all these little things are building? That when you say to them, I don't think that this is a healthy relationship for you to have right now, they're willing to receive it and set it aside, because you've established all of this stuff that just says, I'm not trying to micromanage you, I'm not trying to ruin your fun, I'm looking out for your well-being, and they get that you are on their side. So that's why all those other things come into play later. And then discourage bad habits, whatever that is, something small from bringing your dirty dishes down from your bedroom to being a message killer with a phone. Goodness, just write it down. There's paper, there's pencil. Write down and get into the habit of delivering a message, but also excuses. And this gets tricky because they cloak it in such a way that you don't recognize that it's an excuse until right before you fall asleep, and you're like, oh, she was totally copping out on me. And then you have to go like either wake them up or deal with it first thing in the morning. But a person, any person, but a child that never owns their stuff makes a really ugly adult that never owns their stuff. They need to own their choices, and if they blow it, it's okay. That's where expecting them to fail and making failing at home safe, because then you keep them from making a habit of making excuses, and they can. So we have a saying in our house. It's, I did it. It was me. I'm a worm. And so that's just kind of the thing that that we say when it's really, really hard to admit that you did it. And it's just like, you a worm? And they're like, yeah, I did it. It was me. I'm a worm. And so it's kind of a lighthearted way for us to say a really hard truth, and that's, you know what? I did choose to do that, and I blew it. And then, gosh, I don't know that I've ever had this in here before, but I'm going to pop it in because it's in my brain. And that's to actually get them into the process of actually apologizing. I'm sorry, is not an apology. Do not accept that as an apology. A mumbled, sorry, sorry. That is not an apology. An apology is 4 steps. It is acknowledging what you did wrong. It's saying what you could have done better. It is saying that you apologize for making that choice and doing it, and it's asking for forgiveness. And if you can get them to do those 4 steps, particularly to their siblings, it will make it way easier to do it to other people. But they have to know what they did wrong. They have to know why. Okay, so you're sorry. What are you sorry for? What are you apologizing for? And because usually they're apologizing because they're in trouble. I say, no. There's no growing from that. The point is, okay, you blew it, but I need you to learn from this because it's profitable. When you make a mistake, it's profitable. You can learn from it and then not do it again. Or even if you do it again, just go, okay, well, I made a mistake and I did this, but that was still not good, so maybe I can try this, and maybe that'll be better. And so you just keep trying until you get it right.
Can you give me those steps again?
Acknowledging what they did wrong, so actually helping them to identify the actual thing that they did. I hit my sister. I expressed anger to my, what they would do different. If I'm feeling angry, I would go to my room or tell you, leave the situation so that I don't get to the point where I'm going to sock her in the head. And then it's going to the person that they offended and asking for, giving them the apology and saying, I did this. I shouldn't have done that. I should do this. I apologize for what I did to you. Will you please forgive me? And then it's amazing. Their hearts are light because they're not carrying that burden of guilt. That's a really secret thing it's like if you don't actually acknowledge it, it actually becomes a burden for the child that did the offending more than the one that was offended, because deep down inside you just know, and then it just builds, and then they feel bad about themselves, and then it really gets counterproductive later. Bad habits and excuses, right. Delaying gratification. This is going to obviously look different for every family. There's just been so many studies on delaying gratification. The Oreo, do you guys know about the Oreo experiment? Right, where they give kids the Oreo and they're like, you can have this now, or if you wait till I come back, I'll give you 2, right? And they follow those kids that waited. I mean, they touched it, they're looking at it, they're should I? And they're talking to themselves. But the kids that actually waited to get the second one, they followed them long term, and they were way more successful as adults because they had a habit of delaying gratification. So it's one of those things where it depends on your child, depends on the temperament. This is just something to think about. I don't know that I have any practical tips on how to teach that other than, I guess, maybe diminishing impulsivity as far as like purchases or even waiting for like dessert or snacks, or just extending time that they have to wait. Kind of going with that, my kids acted up at a doctor's office once. They were normally good because we had to go to the doctors a lot, and so they were used to going, and they were normally good, but I don't know what got into them. All three of them. Crazy in the waiting room, crazy in the office. I was like, who are these children, and what did you do with mine? And so when we got home, we practiced waiting in a doctor's office. I said, this is the doctor's office? That's the clinic? I'm the nurse. We're going to practice waiting. And I put the timer on, and I'm just like, we are never doing that again. We're going to practice waiting. And they're just like, yes. I'm like, it's valuable. You're going to have to wait at DMV. You're going to have to wait in line at the grocery store. You're going to have to spend a whole lot of your life waiting. We're going to practice waiting. And so they practiced waiting on the couch, doing nothing for 15 minutes with eyes wide going, oh my gosh, she is really upset. But you know what? They never acted up at the doctor's office again, because I came and got them and I said, Abigail, Meg's really? And then I was like, it's time to go into the office. I'm like, okay, now we're going to the office, and how do we act? Okay, that's what we do. We used to have trouble getting out of the house for preschool. I don't know what about, where's your shoes? Where's your backpack? Where's your jacket? Oh my gosh, like we were late every day. I finally couldn't take it anymore, so one Saturday morning when we did not have preschool, I had a timer, I had all their stuff, and I made them do drills. I said, nope, not fast enough, go back in, put your stuff down. Okay, time to go, kids. How fast can we get in the car? After that, it wasn't a problem. But I didn't do it when we had to get there. It's like I carved out time to teach them how to do this, so I'm sure that there's probably a way to do delayed gratification of this. It never occurred to me to figure out a good example of how you would teach that in a not urgent moment. But anyways. The other D is dyslexia. I'm new to the world of dyslexia with my son, but the current numbers are 1 and 5. Okay, so some of the things that were telltale signs that we didn't know were telltale signs. My son, auditory learner extraordinaire. If he watched a video or heard you read something, he could recite it verbatim, and it was great. Totally eager for school, totally enthusiastic. He was all aboard. And then the second I gave him copy work, puddle. If he was in school, it would have been classified as a behavior issue, or he would have been lazy. That's the thing. If you're having to make excuses for your child as being bored or he's lazy, those are the two things that I would strongly recommend you having them tested for dyslexia, because most kids are actually really eager to do things that aren't super duper hard, and they'll find a way to get out of saying, I can't do this, because they don't want to feel like they're failing. And so we actually had him tested, and he is profoundly dyslexic. But we have a tutor and who's going through the Barton program, and it helps actually rewire their brain, and it helps me to understand how his brain works a little bit better. And it's actually a really cool brain to have, because he's totally 3D and spatial, and it's amazing. But it has some unique challenges that you have to navigate through. So if you're having problems with learning math facts, not being able to learn math facts, that's hard. And if they can do individual subjects, so in spelling, if we were doing spelling, he was perfect. If we were doing grammar, it was perfect. If we were doing cursive, it was perfect. If we were doing something else, it was great. And then I ask him to write something, and it all falls apart. It's like, where's the punctuation? Oh, I forgot. You spelled it right here, but then you spelled it wrong there. Like, there are just patterns that emerge. So dyslexia basically is like an old computer, in that when you run one application, it runs okay. And then you launch another one, so you add another layer of what they have to do. It kind of slows the system down. And then you launch another application, and it's really boggy. You've got, like, if you're an Apple user, you have the spinning ball of death, right? And then you launch that fourth application, and it crashes the system. So that's what it feels like in a dyslexic brain. It's like you're trying to run 4 high-intensity programs, and you've got only, 100 bits of working memory instead of like a 2 gigabyte memory. And so they have to learn how to pace themselves and to do things. And tutoring helps. If you need resources, I have them. I'd be happy to give them to you. And then this last thing, I just throw out there because everybody's different. Everybody's household is different. But to just think and to have a plan ahead of time for what you're going to do about dating, right? The reason why I throw it in here with schooling is, hi, haha, and you just came from the studio, is I know in regards to learning that dating is something that you think that it's a separate box. But dating and that relationship, because it can become really consuming, and can really change the course of where they go academically, especially if they're a little bit older and they want to stay together and somebody's going to this college and suddenly they don't want to pursue what they want to do. They want to try to go closer to where that person's going to be. And so just know that it's not just like a purity issue. It's about time, about how much time are they going to devote to spending time talking on the phone and texting and being occupied with lots of this person. And so but if it's group dates or singles, that's something you and your family are going to have to figure out. But it comes sooner than you think for most people. For my daughter, it hasn't necessarily been an issue. And the fact that not dating is kind of more of a big issue than if she was dating. Like, how come nobody ever asked me out? You know what I mean? It's like, because you're smart and you're scary. In time, because the Lord knows if you had that right now, you would be totally off on a different track, honey. She's like, I know, but it's still frustrating. I'm like, I know, but you're beautiful and it'll happen in its own time. So just dating or even not dating, just feeling left out, and prom and dances and the whole thing. It's just like, well, do you want to go to prom? No. Then why are you cranky at the people that are going to prom? Because I kind of want to go, but then I don't want to go because it's dumb, but yet I'm jealous. I don't know. You know, there's a lot of emotions there, and they see people on Facebook, and you've got things on your face, and it always looks better. She's like, how can people always talk about and show pictures of all the fun they had before they went to prom, but nobody ever talks about and says how awesome it was after they get done. She's like, what's up with that? I'm like, I don't know, okay? I was not a believer. You don't want to hear about my prom stories. They're not pretty. We're moving on. So I've got maybe 2 more sections. One's going to have a little bit. Do you guys need a break for bathroom, snacks, or coffee? Or do you want me to keep going? I don't care because I'm out of the house, so I'm good to go until midnight. So it's up to you guys. It is 8:33. 2-minute break? Okay, good.